And our main effort is both in terms of education, like tonight, or advocacy. Since we've been meeting with all of the village leaders one-on-one and asking how we can partner with them in terms of environmental work that they're doing and how we can support that and what they can get from us and all that. We're at the farmers market usually once a month with a booth and education, and we also try and do some other events. Tonight we have with us Liz Sutton, as you can see from the screen. And Liz has been with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee campus for 14 years, the last 8 of which she's been program manager for the School of Freshwater Sciences. And the thing is, she does a lot of educational programs. She calls it K through Gray. And one thing, I probably won't get this right, but you can correct me. I think you were in California and you were underwater in a sub.
I was not, but there were people. I was out on a research vessel with Dr. Robert Ballard, who found the Titanic. That's where you may remember his name. He doing some work out there. So, yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah. And so, but the most important thing she does a lot of grant writing too, to get money for this program with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. But I wanted just to say the most important thing I could say about Liz is that she's my niece. And I'm one of the member of the team here. My name is David Russell, and we're so glad you came. There's 2 seats right up front, and there's 2 back there, and so help yourselves.
Okay. We're just getting started.
No,
you're fine. I'll see you left for a little while. You lost your spot.
We got a cheer for you here, Sharik.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
It's just like school. No one wants to sit right in the front.
Gonna get called on.
Yeah. No, I won't. And thank you, David. I have been at the university for 14 years, and really I had started in a different part of the university, and at that time the School of Freshwater Sciences was adding a whole new addition onto their building, and I did a lot of programming with them through some initiatives for STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math. And as we were working on those things and they opened this new building, I said, you really need someone to come over and help with outreach type activities to the community. All federal grants now do require that our researchers have outreach to the community. And so I said, you really should have that program, and they went, great, how about you come on over and start that? So that's how I ended up with the position I'm in now. But a little, I'm gonna go through a little background on the school that I work at, a little bit about some of the research that we do, and that'll kind of go into a lot of the health of the Great Lakes and what we're doing to kind of look at things. And if you want, there is one more chair. It's like right in the front though, but I won't bite or anything.
You save the premium seat.
Yes. Now you'll just be called on all the time. So we are, this is our building here. We are an oceanographic style research institute on the Great Lakes. And what that really gets at the heart of is that we are right on the water. We are a little bit away from the main campus. The main campus is about 20 minutes north of us. We are right in Milwaukee's harbor. Milwaukee has 3 rivers that come in. One is coming kind of right in front of our building, and then 2 come down from this way. So all 3 of them come together here before going out into Lake Michigan. And it's really key that we are there. That's important for all the work that we're doing. And we started in the 60s as a research unit, Then we moved down to the harbor area in an old ceramic tile factory and really started doing the work we are doing in research and then eventually adding a school. So we are the only school in the country dedicated to freshwater sciences. Many other schools do have programs. UW-Madison has a program, Grand Valley State in Michigan, a bunch of places do. But those programs, a lot of times, there's someone from the biology department who studies freshwater, someone from chemistry who might, or engineering, and so they're coming from these different departments to all study one topic. We kind of flip that over on its end. And we have chemists and biologists and engineers and people who work on technologies and all different types of things all in the same building working on freshwater. So that's kind of how we've flipped it around. We are also the largest academic research institute on the Great Lakes. So we work to address Great Lakes and other water issues. We don't just study the Great Lakes. It's a lot easier to study them when it's right outside your door. But we do study large bodies of fresh water around the world. But really we're working on two things, research and education. So that research is really advancing ways to improve management, to work on the health and sustainability of water, to really understand what's going on in the system. And then, of course, we're training the next generation of freshwater scientists. Our academic programs, we just added an undergraduate program. So that was last fall. We now have bachelor's, master's, and PhDs in 2 different subjects, freshwater science and atmospheric sciences, which also is a new addition to us. The atmospheric sciences department on campus was kind of floating around. They were actually with the math department most recently because they do a lot of modeling, and we went, that's crazy, you should be with us. So they moved down to our area. We do generally have about 100 students each semester. So we're a fairly small school, but our students are found and our alumni are found everywhere. And we do have a better than 95% job placement for all of our graduates. So it's really, our students are out working, whether it might be with the DNR or out in Washington, D.C. doing policy, or with nonprofits in the area. They're out doing a lot of great work. So then on the research side, and we'll talk a little bit about all of these, we have 5 different areas that we focus on the Great Lakes. You know, I have one more chair up here if you'd like a chair. Okay.
There's one here.
Okay. I can move it, I don't mind. My backpack doesn't need to sit down. So kind of delving into that, well, honestly, first I should bring up a point. This is our previous dean makes quite often, but the Great Lakes are the key to our health, our wealth, and our way of life. And that's really true. We all drink Lake Michigan water. You guys do, we do, drink Lake Michigan water every day. That's really important. Our wealth, if you took the basin, so the basin of the Great Lakes, if it was its own country, it'd be the 4th largest economy in the world. We are a big economic engine for the United States. So that is an important part to remember, and just our way of life. We go out and swim in the lake, or we're out on boats, or the rivers, or any of those things that are really tied to the Great Lakes. So that kind of goes into highlighting a lot of these projects. I'm going to go back to this one for a second. So those areas kind of tip off on each of those. So if we look at human and ecosystem health, that's really looking at what is the ecosystem doing to our health, so a lot of public health issues, but what are the things that we're doing to the health of the ecosystem? Freshwater system dynamics is really what most people would think we do. We study what's going on in the systems all around the world, like I said. We have researchers who've worked in Yellowstone, Lake Bacalar. We take students down to Lake Bacalar in Mexico for like a 2-month course during the summer. We've studied Lake Baikal in Russia, Lake Malawi in Africa. So our researchers are going out and doing a bunch of things. One of our researchers is going on sabbatical in Australia this next semester because she's doing a lot of work with the researchers there. So we're really studying all the stuff that's going on around in all the freshwater systems. We do a lot of work with technology, and that can be anything from creating a new sensor or something that another scientist would use, to developing aquaculture systems, so ways to raise fish sustainably in a different environment. So we do a lot of stuff like that, and a lot of our technology involves monitoring the Great Lakes. We are the home for the Center of Water Policy for the state of Wisconsin. That's kind of a newer area for it, newer in the last 10 to 15 years. We kept getting all this great research, but you have to be able to tie that into what's going on for people. And so the freshwater policy and economics ties that into a lot of social science and the economics of water. And then we have weather, climate, and watersheds. And of course, climate is a big one that we're always concerned with. So I'm going to go through some projects that we are working on, and through that we'll talk a little bit about the health of the Great Lakes. So we do some projects with bacterial source tracking. That picture up there is a picture of Bradford Beach, which is one of our local, very popular beaches. There's about 15 years ago, there was a really big issue with E. coli in the water. E. coli is fecal bacteria, but when you find out that fecal bacteria is in the water, that's about all you know. You don't really know much more. It's like saying there are people in this room. That doesn't tell us anything about those of us in this room. So Dr. Sandra McClellan, who is on the right there, she is able to track through the bacterial DNA what type of animal is providing that fecal bacteria. So the bacteria in my stomach is different than the bacteria in a cow's stomach or a dog's stomach. So she can go and look at what's really providing that fecal bacteria. And she did that. She worked with the park department, which oversees that area. At that time it was Miller Coors provided the funding for it. They provide a lot of funding for our work, as well as a couple of other companies. Their whole product is based on water. If they don't have good water, they're not going to be able to have their product. They have an added incentive because, of course, if more people go to the beach, they will go to the concession stand where they will have Miller products, right? But it's a win for all of us because it means they were funding a lot of this work. And when Sandra tested the water, where a lot of people in our community thought it was human bacteria, that something had happened in our wastewater system that was causing that bacteria to end up in our water. She found very little evidence of any human bacteria. It was all bird bacteria. The gulls come, take somebody's lunch, fly off, and leave a little present behind. That's really what was causing all the issue. By knowing that, our park department decided to hire people to walk their dogs along the beach. It's a very low-cost investment. People walk their dogs along the beach, and that scares the birds away. Now, they go somewhere else, but they're not where people want to swim and be using the water. If we wouldn't have found out that information and tried to treat it as a human bacteria problem, we would have spent much, much more money and not actually solved the problem. So by tracking down what's actually going on, it really helps us figure out what's going on in the community. And we'll be talking about Dr. McCullen a little bit later. She's also doing work around the country on the health of communities, looking at their wastewater in general. So we'll be talking about her a little bit more. Contaminants are certainly something that we pay attention to. In particular, a lot of pharmaceuticals are unfortunately making their way in. And yes, there will be plenty of bad news, I understand. Sometimes I'll start and people will be like, everything is there. It's not, I promise. I will leave you feeling a little better about things. But pharmaceuticals, and a big thing, well, if you remember 20 years ago, the way if you didn't use all of your medication, what were you supposed to do with it? Flush it down the toilet, which puts it right into our water system. So we can see, even if you use the medicine the way you're supposed to, if I have strep throat and take antibiotics, my body doesn't use all of the chemicals in that antibiotic. So some of it will go out in my waste, which means it's going to go into our water system. And we need to be able to take it out, right? So we work a lot in finding what's moving through our system. We see a lot of times metformin, caffeine, acetaminophen, a lot of these we do find quite a bit. If you're not familiar, a lot of people are now, that top one, that's for diabetic medication. So a lot of people take it for that. They can't stop taking those medications, but we can make sure that people are responsibly disposing of any that they have. So most police departments, up by us, all of our Walgreens and like CVS and stuff, they have places where you can drop off medication that you aren't using. So we can talk to people about safely disposing of it. But also we work very closely with our local sewerage district, and we will go, oh, we found this happening. You need to figure out the way to take care of it. And so then they'll try and figure out how can they remove it from the water before it goes into Lake Michigan. So we do a lot of work with that, and stuff like mercury in the water or those kinds of things as well. We do, as I mentioned, a lot of technology with aquaculture and fish nutrition. Due to some invasive species, the commercial fisheries in Lake Michigan pretty much collapsed in the 50s. But we all love to eat like yellow perch for fish fry or do those kinds of things. So we wanted to find, and have been working for many years to find the best way to sustainably raise fish indoors. Okay? So we pipe, and we work on the techniques. We're not like selling them or anything like that. That's not our goal. But we will pipe water from Lake Michigan into the tanks. The fish live in that system, and that water, we recycle it through there their entire lives. And we have done a lot of work in creating larger crops of fish more times a year, and really working on, right now, a lot of the food that aquaculture feed to their fish come from marine sources out in the ocean. which is not a very sustainable way to do that. Why would we like feed other fish to, that doesn't make sense. So we're working on different ways that we can come up with nutrition that's really, we could grow in the Midwest and then raise our fish here. Because right now, I think it's over 80 to 85% of the seafood in the United States is imported from someplace else. That's kind of crazy, and especially if you think about maybe some other countries' standards are not what we would really want them to be. So we should be able to have that food grown locally. That's a very viable job for someone to have. So we want to help develop the techniques for that. We're going to cut away from our research a little bit to talk. This is the picture you saw initially was our research vessel, the Niske, but we are in the process. This is actually the Niske right now. Our current research vessel that takes us out to do all of this work, and we're going to talk about even more of the work. But we are in the process of getting a new research vessel, the Maggie Sue. And it's really going to be, what we're hoping is it's a catalyst for new research vessels in the Great Lakes. Right now, it's a very aging group of research vessels. The youngest ones are at least 20 years old. Our current vessel, the Niske, is a Korean War era supply ship that was converted to a scientific vessel in the 1970s. We do a lot of amazing work using that vessel, but just in comparison, the entire lab space is 2 tables like this. For a whole class of students, that's not really practical. And last year it was a really big deal. We got some Wi-Fi capabilities. It's time to get something a little more modern. So we're working on the Maggie Sue, and it really is going to help us expand our reach to a lot of things, including stuff like looking at the impacts of invasive species. There are over 180 different invasive species in the Great Lakes. There's a number of them. They cause varying issues, but the one we're going to talk about the most has completely changed the way the lake functions, and that's the one right here. It is a dracinid mussel. Most of you have probably heard of it as the zebra mussel. Zebra mussels came in ballast water from ships, so that's how a ship will sit correctly in the ocean so it doesn't tip over, by using different ballast water. So if a ship comes from Poland and brings on that ballast water, whatever is in the water there, it's going to bring all the way across the ocean and bring it into our water. So that's primarily the way that they all came in. But the zebra mussels were an issue for 5 to 10 years. Then their bigger, badder cousins came in, and those are called quagga mussels, and they have completely taken over Lake Michigan. If we were to walk from here to like Muskegon or something like that on the Michigan side, we would walk across the entire bottom would be